Let me turn to China-South Asia relations. China borders 5 out of 8 South Asian countries. The only other 3 that China doesn't border is Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and Maldives. With Bhutan, it does not have diplomatic relations, although the Chinese embassy in New Delhi is discussing with Bhutan, first for a territorial dispute resolution and finally for normalizing diplomatic relations. China-Pakistan relations have become strategic in nature. They have, since 1962 border clashes between India and China, China sees Pakistan as a balancer to India. With this objective, China had supplied conventional and strategic weapons platforms to Pakistan, including nuclear technologies, training programs for the nuclear scientists, and also nuclear materials. The Chashma 1, 2, 3 grandfathering of the nuclear power plants is undergoing, as well as the ring magnets that they supply to Pakistan is of a major concern for the international community and India. Chinese technicians are reportedly working at a place closer to in Pakistan. This is for transferring the ballistic missile technologies in Fatehganj factory closer to Rawalpindi. China-Pakistan also have a free trade area since 2006, and today they are solidifying bilateral relations by having the CPEC projects, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor projects. China intends to invest $62 billion in this. There is also the role that China plays sometimes disruptively in Nepal. We have seen recently the Oli government came under pressure from China. China is trying to extend the Belt and Road Initiative also into Nepal through investments in hydroelectricity projects and roads and even a railway project. From Shigatse to Kathmandu, there are surveys being conducted. But this comes at a cost of nearly $56 billion, which Nepal cannot pay back. As you know, the Nepalese GDP is slightly over $20 billion. With Bangladesh, China intends to admit Bangladesh intensively in the Belt and Road Initiative projects, and it is eyeing the natural gas that is available in Bangladesh. It has built 6 bridges across the Ganges and also has other infrastructure projects in Bangladesh. In Sri Lanka, China had built up the Hambantota port at a cost of nearly $1.2 billion. And today, over 30,000 Chinese workers are working in several infrastructure projects, including Colombo port project. China's influence in Sri Lanka has increased substantially, sometimes at the cost of India. As we saw recently, the Sri Lankan government rejected the Indian and Japanese proposal for construction of a port terminal in Colombo, while granting permission for Chinese companies. In Maldives, under the previous government, China's influence has been quite substantial. But Speaker Nasheed has criticized China for the island grab in Maldives, although Chinese tourism to Maldives has been substantial, and they have also signed a free trade area with Maldives in a hurry. The parliament has passed that resolution. President Xi Jinping, visiting Maldives and Sri Lanka in 2014, called these as pearls in the Indian Ocean, reviving all those images of string of pearls concept. In Afghanistan, China has been investing in several infrastructure projects in the Aina copper mine, in the Amu Darya region, in several other road and dam construction projects. Although recently they found some of these were working as intelligence agents in Afghanistan. China's investment in the Belt and Road Initiative in Afghanistan is less than 100 million. Although China is very active with the Hekmatyar group and is trying to bring together the China, Pakistan, Afghanistan and Tajikistan closer in a quadrilateral format. China intends to be a member of the SAARC from graduating from an observer position since 2014. It is trying to become a member and decrease the influence of India in the SAARC process. As its desire has not been fulfilled, China today is floating quadrilaterals, sometimes termed as Himalayan quadrilateral, along with some South Asian countries. However, this has not really been successful, not even on COVID-19 relief operations. Many countries also complain about the low quality of medical equipment or masks that China supplied to South Asia. China-South Asia trade over $120 billion, but nearly $90 billion belong to that of India-China trade. So substantially, there is the Indian component very high in the South Asian trade. China has free trade agreements with Pakistan, with Maldives, and is negotiating with Sri Lanka. Nevertheless, this is of no major impact, as many of these countries are criticizing China for the trade deficits, lack of investments, and moreover dumping of Chinese goods in these markets. In 21st century, there is a huge impact that India and China are going to make in the regional order and in the global orders. Their aspirations, as we just discussed, are important in the direction that they are going forward in their own leadership's perceptions. India is a democracy. India has also suggested that it would like to push the democratic experiment. Prime Minister Modi spoke in Japan in September 2014 for support to the democracies. At the moment, India has been focusing on South Asian region in terms of spread of democracy, and New Delhi is happy if there is democracy in Pakistan, if democracy thrives in Nepal, in Bangladesh, in Sri Lanka, Maldives, and Afghanistan. There is also the Tibetan community in the recent times have been experimenting with a democratic system. They have been electing their own Sikyong. So this is also a soft influence possibly India is exerting in terms of the aspirations of the Tibetan diaspora. One more issue that I would like to flag here is the river water diversion projects. Although sometimes Chinese mention about these are as run-of-the-river projects. On Yarlung Zampo, when it becomes the Brahmaputra River at Namcha Barwa, the river drops to nearly 3,000 meters. That's 3 kilometers downfall, which is good for generating a lot of hydroelectricity. But China also has the south-north diversion projects. Two projects, the central sector and the eastern sector projects have been completed. Today it wants to divert the Yarlung Zampo towards the north. So this has resulted in concerns for the lower riparian states like India and Bangladesh. China is building dams, some 26 dams at the Namcha Barwa region, and this has once in a while raised the issue of water security. Both in Himachal Pradesh as well as in Arunachal Pradesh and the northeast in general. Water issues are of concern for the 21st century. I explained to you briefly about the Galwan situation, where last year, June, there has been the 20 Indian casualties and an estimated 45 Chinese casualties, although they admitted to only 4 in public. The effects of the Galwan event will have huge implications for the bilateral relations. As the mutual mistrust increases, it is likely that despite the leadership's efforts to normalize relations, this is going to have a huge impact on the public opinion polls, on the responses of the people vis-a-vis each other. Already, China is raising the specter of nationalism on India, and this is of major concern. The way out has been explained by Dr. Jaishankar in January in the 8 red lines that he mentioned, which includes sticking to the agreements that both have signed and following those agreements, disengagement and de-escalation so that peace and stability prevails on the border, and the reciprocity principle and others. The institutional arrangements that have come to the fore before the CBMs are also being revamped now, and it appears that both leaders will take some time for these implementation. Let me finally suggest that India-China relations are at a crossroads in February 2021. The Galwan incident, the Pankungso incident, the Gogra Heights, the Nakula incident, they all have a huge impact on the bilateral relations. China's position is we should forget about the territorial dispute and discuss the bilateral relations. India's position is unless until peace and stability prevails on the border, there cannot be much improvement in the bilateral relations. So there are two different views that has torn the bilateral relations. But most importantly, without stability in the border areas, it is quite not possible for them to continue the exchanges. In fact, the COVID-19 in 2020 and others have disrupted also trade, tourism, people-to-people exchanges, or in other formats. So broadly, India, China are at a crossroads now. Both the leaderships are wise enough to overcome these problems. And moreover, since both the leaderships focus on economic development, it is likely that they get back to normalcy. With India insisting, of course, on peace and stability as a sine qua non for improving bilateral relations. Another dimension, of course, is there is a lot of competition between the two, and it is reflected in COVID-19 vaccine diplomacy. It is reflected in competition for resources, for investments, FDI, for markets in future, in space, in global commons, such as in space, cyber, and maritime domains. But since the focus of the leaderships is on development, it is likely that they are willing to expand bilateral interactions, or at least see to it that there is no conflict situation that is prevailing. And one of the areas where we are likely to see more India-China interactions is in the multilateral format, such as in the BRICS, SCO, East Asian Summit, United Nations, counter-terrorism, or in other spheres. Let me also quickly shift towards the China-West Asia relations. Briefly, China has been aloof from this region as West Asia or the Middle East has been closer to the United States. And soon after China launched a reform program, it is dependent on energy resources. So today, they import 420 million tons of oil, some 60% coming from West Asia and about 24% coming from Africa. Much of the energy flow for China is from Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Iran. In the 70s, China supplied arms to both Iran and Iraq in an opportunistic trade deal, arms trade deal. China has also been reportedly supplying sensitive technologies to Iran, to Syria, to other countries. It had sold the IRBMs, intermediate range ballistic missiles, to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is also interested in diversifying some of its petrodollars to China, although that project has not been successful. China is trying to put up a free trade area with the GCC countries, Gulf Coordination Council, and wanted to send over 2 million laborers to the West Asian infrastructure projects. This could pose some competition to nearly 8 million Indian workers living in West Asia. Ironically, it is India which introduced China to the West Asia in the Sino-Arab cooperation during the Bandung Conference in 1955. Today, it appears that China and India are competing in the West Asian region. Both China and India, of course, are trying to diversify under pressure from the United States, the oil that they import from Iran. Although China is a member of the P5+1 on the Iranian nuclear issue, even though China has reportedly transferred some technology to Isfahan nuclear facility. Energy being a major factor for China in West Asia, today it also is supplying a lot of arms, both conventional and strategic, to West Asian countries. In addition, it has now Djibouti naval base not far away from this region, and although they intend to use this for UN peacekeeping operations, nevertheless, if the Americans withdraw from the West Asian region, as the shale gas revolution increases, it is likely that China's footprint in West Asia would increase, including the Djibouti naval base pressure. Let me quickly also shift towards China Central Asia. India configures Central Asia as its extended neighborhood, and during the Soviet times, India had close relations with several of these republics. However, since 1991, when most of these countries became independent, China had cobbled up the whole region into Shanghai 5 in 96 and to Shanghai Cooperation Organization, with Russian and Chinese veto power in the SCO. Although it is done through consensus approach in the SCO, it is likely that we see expanded Chinese influence in Central Asia. China's goal is to marginalize the influence of Russia in Central Asia, in the Eurasian region, While China and Russia have expressed concerns on the colored revolutions that some European and American NGOs have been conducting in Eurasian region, nevertheless, the many authoritarian regimes in this, including China, have been pushing certain agenda in Central Asia. Of course, China is dependent on Central Asia for energy resources. Although Central Asia is known for having about 4% of global reserves, China is looking at Central Asia and has been establishing energy pipelines. 4 energy pipelines are in the works, one already completed in 2006 with Kazakhstan, with Alashankau, from where it goes up to Shanghai. China is also building up energy pipelines with Turkmenistan, with other Central Asian republics. Many of these countries are today heavily dependent on China market and provides for huge leverage for China. Chinese economic and trade relations are also increasing, mainly of course investments in the energy field, but also there are criticisms in relation to the dumping of goods in the Central Asian markets. The Belt and Road Initiative began with the Nazarbayev University speech by President Xi Jinping, and today Belt and Road Initiative is passing through several Central Asian republics. India is a member of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization since 2017, and India's concerns are mainly in 4 areas. One is energy security. It wants to diversify imports to Central Asia, especially the Turkmenistan gas. The TAPI project, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, is a priority for India, and over $6 billion is being pumped into this project. Of course, it is dependent on the situation and stability in Afghanistan and Pakistan. Secondly, India is also interested in counter-terrorism exercises. Central Asia, Russia have been conducting peace mission exercises and bilateral exercises. There is some understanding between India and China on the counter-terrorism in this field, in the peace mission exercises, because partly China and India are heavily dependent on the Russian arms imports. And Central Asia also provides for huge industrial base during the Soviet times and now for spare parts. Thirdly, India's interests coincide with China also in Central Asia in terms of economic and trade relations, although economic and trade relations are very minuscule. Fourthly, of course, the bilateral relations and expanding tourism and other aspects. So broadly, there is the China West Asia, China South Asia, China Central Asia, which provide for cooperation and competition for India and China in the coming years. There is a lot of effort that both these countries are making in order to expand their national interests in these regions. They have their own pluses and minuses in terms of their interests. We have to see how this will pan out in the near future. India has several advantages. It is not encroaching on anyone's land. It has no sovereignty disputes. While China's influence is increasing, there is also the assertiveness that has been opposed by many countries in West Asia, South Asia, Central Asia. Let me shift to the maritime domain. China has been increasing its maritime footprint as China's trade, exports and imports are increasing substantially. 2 years ago, China's trade was nearly $4 trillion. And since 2009, it had initiated a two ocean strategy, the Indian Ocean strategy and the Pacific Ocean strategy. As a result of this, China has substantially expanded its naval profile. In 2008, it began the Somali counter-piracy operations. And by 2022-21, China had sent 36 naval vessels to the Indian Ocean region. 2 to 3 ships were sent every year, but China has also done some anti-submarine warfare, air defense exercises, which suggests that China's plans were not simply counter-piracy, but also related to sea control. China has been sending submarines to Karachi port, to Colombo, which again suggests that these are not simply peaceful objectives, but also to disrupt trade in Indian Ocean. Thirdly, it is involved in a number of infrastructure projects, Hambantota, Godar, and others. In addition, China's trade with these regions have increased substantially. China is an observer in IORARC, Indian Ocean Rim Association for Regional Cooperation, which has now been renamed as IORA, Indian Ocean Rim Association. China has been an observer. China wants to be a member of the IORA, although it is an extra-regional power to Indian Ocean. So, the pressure from China on Indian Ocean is increasing by citing energy imports from West Asia and Africa. Nevertheless, the Indian side has been conducting anti-submarine experiments with Andaman Nicobar Island upgraded in terms of a joint command. India is also trying to protect its maritime domain, especially after the Mumbai attacks, terrorism attacks. So a number of developments have happened in Indian Ocean region. Quickly turning to South China Sea, which is again a major portion. Here, the 4 countries, US, Japan, India, Australia, in Da Nang in 2017 identified 5-6 issues: rule of law, international law, freedom of navigation and overflight, the issues related to trade and commerce, countering WMD proliferation, weapons of mass destruction proliferation, addressing the North Korean issue, counterterrorism, and so on. So, among these, the free and open Indo-Pacific came to be a major project, and it is trying to address the militarization of South China Sea by China. Today, China controls 9 reefs and has 2,000 acres of built-up area in South China Sea, through which China intends to control 80% of the South China Sea, which is about 3.4 million square kilometers. China's territorial sea construct means that it would not allow any other ship to pass through, including that of India. After the INS Airavat incident in 2009, India has now joined the multilateral effort to make the region free and open Indo-Pacific. China's effort to control the maritime space for its own interests is now being addressed through Indo-Pacific and the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue. In 2015, when US President Obama came to New Delhi, a joint vision statement for Indian Ocean and the South China Sea was signed. Of course, so far, India only did group sailing with the Southeast Asian countries or bilaterally naval exercises. With Vietnam, Indonesia, India has been stepping up its cooperative measures in space technologies, in defense industries, in training programs, and in other areas. India is also involved in the Sabang port construction in Indonesia. So to sum up all these, India and China, when they look at the 21st century, we see there are many areas of cooperation and competition. At the bilateral level, at China South Asia level, at West Asia level, Central Asia level, the maritime domain, and in other areas, we see many of their interests are coinciding, but also there are elements of competition or even conflict. When the INS Airawat was pushed away by the Chinese side, there is a potential conflict situation arising. When the Chinese send submarines to the Indian Ocean region, there is again a conflict situation that is arising. Hopefully the leaderships become more rational. They weigh the costs, benefits involved in this. Let's hope for a more productive India-China relations. Let me thank you for your attention.